Alrighty, folks. Well, welcome to today's webinar. We're joined by a good guy named Parth Shah. He's the CEO of Polymorphic, and excited to have him join us. Hopefully soon we'll be joined by the surrogate judge in Passaic County, the Honorable Zola Casanova, and then later on by Randy Kress, the CIO of Rowan County. So excited to have these folks join our conversation and talk about government efficiency, right? Things that often elude us in local government, but these are things that are not unattainable. So excited to talk through this conversation and how AI specifically can help us to achieve some efficiency in our operations. So excited to have these folks join us and learn a lot from these individuals who are doing the real work right now in local government, and Parth, who is providing different tools and opportunities for governments to be able to take advantage and to be able to elevate their efficiency. So just a couple housekeeping things like we always do. As a reminder, like, why do we do this every single month? Why do we push these videos out? Why do we have these conversations, hopefully throughout the month as well, too? And I have a lot of great conversations, a lot of great feedback from the different perspectives that we've had from folks here on these webinars, even months after. Still go back and think through the different things that people have said and the perspectives they've gathered and the opportunities for real change and real impact. So we're doing this to foster collaboration. We're doing this to share knowledge, and we're doing this to spur innovation. So really excited to have these conversations and continue forward with this too on another webinar here in the beginning of July. Another thing we want to do too, just for a heads up, is want to encourage y'all, if you are interested in doing any type of sponsorship with the AI and Local Government Network, would love to have a conversation with you all. Here's a QR code you can use. But if you're doing some really cool, innovative work and helping local governments with AI or AI adjacent things, would love to have you on the platform and talk about that as well too. So another thing as well is, if you have perspectives, if you are using AI in local government, please reach out to me. I want to hear from you. A lot of what we're doing here is from grassroots. No one that I know of has figured this whole AI thing out yet. And so the more that we can share information and share use cases, it just makes us better. And even if it's one of those things that, you know what, I can take 10% of what you're doing because of different factors. Well, I just made myself 10% better. And that's a really great thing. We can do these incremental, sustainable changes that really drive progress with it. The thing is too, so if you're interested, here's your upcoming schedule, just the first Monday of every month at 11:30. So would love to have you join us. Would love to have your conversation. Again, your input, your perspectives and things would be very, very valuable to us. And then last but not least, would love to stay connected with you all to continue the conversation like we talked about before. Let's continue the conversation. Reach out to Parth on LinkedIn and social media. Reach out to Honorable Casanova and to Randy Kress. Reach out to these individuals. They are a wealth of information, and their expertise does not neatly fit into a 1-hour webinar session. So please reach out, please engage with them and talk to them here. And last but not least, huge shout out to our sponsors that make this possible, that make this something we can do on a month-to-month basis. So huge shout out. This entire webinar right now is the gold sponsor behind this. The propeller behind it, so to speak, is Polymorphic. So huge thanks to Polymorphic for their investment into local government and their investment in AI and local government, as well as to our bronze sponsors like Clerk Minutes, Civic AI, and American Association of Municipal Executives. So thank you to all of them for their sponsorship. And again, a huge shout out to Polymorphic and all the work they're doing. Excited to have you all learn more about that. Just for your own recollection too, and once this webinar goes posted live and is fully edited and I get all the ums and all the things I didn't want to say out of the webinar, I'll post a link to the previous webinar we did where we had Parth and his team on and went through an overview of Polymorphic. I'll post that in the link on the description below this video here on YouTube as well. That way you can see that. If you want to go in and watch that video and see that live, you'll be able to do that. So with that being said, I'm going to stop my screen share, and we're going to have kind of a conversation here with Parth and talk first about kind of why is government efficiency even something that we should concern ourselves with? Let's start with the basics here, Parth. Like, why is this even something we should, like, why care about efficiency in government?
Yeah, so I'm excited to be on, and I know Zola is planning on hopping on soon. I think she'll have some interesting points on it. But I think, one of the things we hear a lot from, I think a lot of the local governments we speak to and hear from is the big challenge that I think is coming down the line in the next 4 or 5 years is just, there's a continued increase in demand and uh, desire for more services, more customer service. And it feels like almost every manager we ask, um, it boils down to really uh, a concern that there might not be as much capacity on the staff side, and hiring it continues to be difficult. And so I think people are trying to get creative with, how can we make our staff life easier, right? So the same way we may have been thinking about um, handling 100 applications, and maybe we needed, five folks spending all their time reviewing those applications. Maybe with some efficiencies, we can actually free up the fifth person to spend some time more on like event planning and outreach. And so it's a really neat, I think, perspective around, I think, a question that hasn't been asked enough for retention and recruiting and all of that, which is what parts of the job are best suited for staff or humans, and then which part is focused for or could be automated and helped out with certain AI tools. So that's kind of the overarching theme, and happy to kind of dive in a bit deeper there.
Yeah, I think it's a great perspective, especially as we're dealing with having to do more with less. And part of this is kind of coming out of the 2020 year and 2021 with the pandemic and things like that. And two, I think, and maybe Randy, you can speak to this too. Randy Kress from Rowan County, the CIO here, would love to have you join this conversation too, Randy, is on the idea of, okay, so we want to gain efficiency in government, and we see the need for it from an internal operations perspective, right? Where we're having to do more with less, and as the retention and things like that Parth mentioned too. Randy, I'm curious as to what are you seeing specifically around the idea of maybe the external demands that are coming onto local government, like what the people in Rowan County are expecting and how they expect you to deliver services, and why efficiency in delivering those services is important. Kind of setting the foundation, the groundwork for why is it desirable per se? Why is this something that we even care about? And so Parth talked about the internal pressures of it. What are you seeing on the external pressures about efficiency and the need for efficiency, maybe specifically in Rowan County too?
Sure. Yeah, happy to be here. And I would say one of the main items driving that externally, you're always tasked to do more with less budget dollars. Um, and it's not from a local government perspective, people are used to dealing with private sector websites, having great customer service. So when they hit a local government site, they're looking to either find information quickly, not have to go around 30 different locations ultimately to find the one department you're supposed to deal with. And then when you do hit that department, you're looking for information quickly. And typically we understand that, there's the 90% rule, everything's going to be good. And then there's that 10% where you're dealing with exceptions. So how can you quickly get through and find an answer to those exceptions, to get that particular citizen or constituent, information they need so that they can, have their government service work completed, whether that's paying taxes or trying to find, a particular book at the library. So definitely hitting more demands for that efficiency side, not just to go around and have to call a department, be transferred to another, ask the same thing 3 or 4 different times. So
Yeah, you make a great point, especially in the idea of this is how this is how we expect to engage with this is how residents expect to engage with information, right? And we saw this. We can use a parallel too. We saw this happen with social media when it first came on. At first, local governments or government in general, public sector was very hesitant to adapt and adopt social media. But now we understand that that's where people are. We want to reach where people are. So to kind of dive, it's kind of, I want to kind of set the foundation for why efficiency is important and why it's a desired end state, and how the internal and external demands for efficiency should really drive why we do what we do. So Randy, I'm gonna start with you and specific to Rowan County, and then Parth, I'll have you jump in and kind of give me maybe a more global perspective, what you're seeing with other cities across the US here. So we want to gain efficiency. We see the internal external demands for that. Why AI? Why is AI something that's going to help us get there? Why go down the AI path as opposed to maybe more the legacy things we've done before?
I'll use this in our case, and just exploring different AI uses. And I'll kind of equate this to doing reports. Um, in our particular environment, we have a tenured staff member who's getting ready to retire that knows SQL inside and out and writes reports. We've got other staff that are learning, kind of know different things. And so when we started using different AI models just to test, we found that, we can run through, and if you know a little bit about what you're trying to do, you can get more out of it. With questions and answers that you're getting back, and you can kind of explore at a pace that's higher than just reading through a book or going through a training session. And that's really what we've seen is taking bits of knowledge and just expanding on that. And I see the same thing where, when you're going through and utilizing AI for other applications like, meetings, for example, transcriptions, being able to get more content out of it. So pretty much, there's a lot of places that we've turned to looking at AI and realize that the time to value is immediate in a lot of cases. With a little bit of human oversight to understand what's going on, making sure you're getting good information. It's definitely faster than the norm. The whole summarization, going through and combing through 600 pages of documentation to find a couple things beats an in context search all day long. So pretty much everything we've thrown at it, it has value to that can be taken out of it. I should say.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I want to get into some real specifics too with you. And maybe it's something that you and Parth can kind of talk back and forth. Parth, first, what are you seeing from the global perspective, right? What are you seeing from all the different cities and towns and counties that Polymorphic has partnered with? What are you seeing in terms of the value that AI specifically brings to the table with being able to achieve efficiency and be able to improve processes in local government?
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting place to place too. In terms of, and to kind of echo what Randy said, I think like the reason it feels different, why the investment in AI is almost easier in some ways, is it's honestly really easy to test and visualize where you can see some of those improvements from. I think that's like tough with a lot of these legacy systems. I mean, we like our core product is this process workflow CRM side. So we're very familiar with it, which is like that's a really involved process. You usually have to map out and define your processes. So that can be a lot trickier. But I think one of the things that really I find interesting around AI is it's it's a simple API. And I don't know if there's like a term like that's not used in government often, but like in the engineering, we say like basically like it's the language by which we say like, I give you this, you give me this back, right? And if you think about like your complex like ERP systems or something like that, it's a pretty complicated language to talk, right? You're like, I'm going to send you some payment transactions. You're going to do some stuff with it. If it's like a, cash receipts, I'm getting a different response. If it's accounts payable, it's different. Like there's all these things. It's a huge mess. Sometimes I get a spreadsheet back. Sometimes I get just like something I can see in the UI. With AI, I think the neat thing there is like, it's really like I give you text, you give me text, right? Or I give you like a text description, you give me an image back that I can use for like a marketing flyer, right? And I think that has made it really approachable where you don't need this like very complex implementation sometimes to get started. So I think that goes a long way. And so from there, like what I'm seeing cities do is, beyond what they do with us with that search and chat side, and there we have Sarga Casanova, and she can kind of share on that. But people are using it for everything from like starting with simple stuff around automating kind of how they at least draft the job descriptions to, we heard a really neat one with like drafting grants. Some really small municipalities, it is really difficult to have the time to run your day-to-day operations and then even have time to, draft grants, all these other things. So that's where like folks will start. And then With us, we're usually coming in and building that search and chat and voice experience where we're trying to simplify the Q&A. And so once they've seen it work for internal questions, they start to think about what they can do for constituents. And I think that's kind of what both Randy and Sergey Casanova spend time on here.
Yeah, Honorable Casanova, so glad you joined us here with Randy and Parth. Excited to have you here. We were talking about we started a conversation with that efficiency is in fact a desired end state in local government and public sector specifically because of the internal and external pressures and demands that we do things the right way and be efficient because of lack of resources, because this is how people expect to be able to engage with information, especially in the private sector and things like that, and how AI is a valuable tool to be able to help us get there as well too. And Randy brought up some great points about just the, for lack of a better term, the economies of scale that are gained by using AI with how quickly can return the value of that. Parth saying the same thing too in the global perspective. Now I want to kind of shift gears. You talk about this in theory format, right? Which is exciting and fun in theory, but eventually I get bored talking about theory. So I want to get back into like the real practical stuff. Okay. So I want to talk, and feel free to share your screen, like give us examples, get down the weeds of this too. And I'll start with you, Honorable Casanova. What are some of the things that you're doing there at the county with AI that you're looking back and seeing the real world impact on outcomes and how you're managing your team and how you're achieving results? What are some of the things that you're seeing specifically that you're saying, do you know what? This is because of polymorphic. This is because of AI and what we're able to do and how we're able to be more efficient and improve our processes.
Well, and thank you, and I appreciate accommodating me. I had a major technical difficulties trying to log on, but
No
anyway,
worries. No worries.
what I found initially was a way of making it easy for our overnight, and it turned out to really make it the whole process again. If for those that don't know what the surrogate court does, we are also the probate court. So when somebody passes away, we deal with the estate. And I always say you can't plan death, so we need to be accessible. We need to meet people where they are. And AI has helped me do that. We can have information on a website, but one of the things that we had that monopolized a lot of my human capital was the overnight phone calls. Your loved one passes away, you understand that this process has to happen, and you just make a phone call. And sometimes on average, 25 to 32 calls on our voicemail overnight. That is also the internet. You Google and you'll get random information, but nothing specific. What AI has done and Polymorphic has done for us is provide a means to answer those questions that somebody might have interacting, as well as answer our overnight calls. And most importantly, in up to 72 languages is what Polymorphic is able to provide, which is impossible for me to hire and meet those needs. And my county is very diverse. And we're able to not only answer those questions, but answer them in their native tongue, both in writing, online, and audible when they do call. So that has helped me able to use my human capital but much better. And then a surprise of having the online chat option is that my staff has begun to use this information because we've fed it the law. And so instead of having to go and look at the legal book just to double check things, they've used it now as their learning tool. So it's now serving multiple purposes. Not only my goal was the community outreach and being able to answer those questions, but now it's also a support tool internally for what we do.
That's incredible. So let's dive a little bit deeper about this whole voice thing you got going on here. So Parth and Honorable Casanova and Randy, if you're using something similar like that in Rowan County, jump in here. Tell us more about this voice thing that you have to be able to answer the phone in 70 different languages. How is that set up? Can we get in a little more of the weeds and understand that a little better here?
Yeah,
Oh,
so I can start with kind of the high level, and it's early days on it. So it's kind of a one of a kind, and Sargent Casanova, and actually a municipality in the county as well, has been one of the first to really try it out as this after hours line. Basic ideas. So where we started around the search and the chat feature was, how do we take a knowledge base, index all that content, which is your website, maybe your code. In the surrogates course, they have a bench book, which is, legal information, forms, things like that you can submit. And that's the basis, right? That's the knowledge basis of that. What we're now trying to get to, which gets a lot more complicated on the phone, is it's a different medium, but using that same kind of knowledge engine, right? So folks are calling in, we're understanding what they're asking about, putting that in the same engine. And it's really interesting because, when you get the responses, you can't do the same things you can do on the web, right? You can't really have links because on the web you can click through a link. But if you're on the phone, right, you had to explain that. And so there's a really interesting example. A small municipality in North Carolina actually showed an example of they asked like, how do I get a building permit in their case, right? And then on the website, obviously, just links you to the place. But on the phone, it says, go to this part of the website, click on this button, then click here, then click there. So the whole idea is like trying to provide that same knowledge engine on different interfaces, right? And so phone is one of the most important ones for most governments. It's probably the biggest volume. And in Circuit Casanova's case, you're talking about 25 to 32 just after hours. I mean, you can't even imagine during hours how many calls are coming in. And so that's really kind of the idea there. And the language side is very interesting. It's very challenging on the phone. So that's even earlier on that side. But um, it, it's kind of really just trying to expand the number of inputs and outputs you can put into that engine is really the idea.
yeah, that's incredible. It shows the power of AI to be able to reach people, right? And that's I think what's really cool too. That's not we can talk about how great AI is for this too. But the thing that's really cool too is that sort of Casanova that you had a perspective of I want to reach those different populations, right? It wasn't just, well, I can't do anything, so it's fine, which has been kind of okay for a long time in the public sector. And but you said, no, we can do better. We can do better than this. We can actually reach those populations. We don't have to have language be a barrier to being able to access their surrogate judge and the services that the surrogate judge provides, right? So that's really cool that you had that perspective to begin with. I think it's something that needs to be said too, and highlighted that we need to have a perspective of we can in fact reach people where they're at. This is a different day and age, and we need to adapt to this day and age where we can reach people where they're at, and yeah, and make sure that we're providing services to all peoples and not just the people who look and sound like us. So the other thing too that I want to get to with Randy too as well is, okay, we talked about, surrogate judge Casanova talked specifically about some things she's doing with the voice answer machines and being able to respond to calls after hours in different languages, even to some of the ability for her staff to be able to access information, and probably very complicated information, having read through a couple of, maybe one or two court cases. I know these are not, light comic book reading that you can just quickly go through. What are you guys doing specifically in Rowan County in regards? Are you doing something similar with this? Are there other things that you're doing as well within Rowan County, and how you're leveraging AI specifically, and any service that you guys are doing with Polymorphic too? I'd love to hear about that.
Sure. Yeah, I'll say we're definitely really looking at the internal knowledge base as well. Again, getting to the efficiency of staff. We started, I'd say 2 years ago. Well, actually during COVID, whenever we could do transcriptions for meetings, but it's really kind of taken off now, of doing voice transcriptions and doing summarizations on every meeting we have with vendors and as we go through projects. And it's just been a good from an efficiency standpoint to understand what's being promised, what's being delivered, and what's in between, and kind of taking that same mindset for what can we do on the website. And that's where we've worked with Polymorphic on kind of building that knowledge base engine for the public, and that's based off of our ordinances and our website. And we've kind of put that front and center on our site. And I will say, and I've talked with Parth a good bit as we've gone through this journey. Um, Everybody was used to keyword search, and when we were first looking at it, um, anything above and beyond a keyword, you would get results back from everything on our page. It wasn't relevant. So when we started doing semantic search and tying that with AI and natural language processing to give you a answer back to your question, um, we started seeing immediate, hey, this has value. But what we did realize is that citizens aren't quite used to it yet because of Google search. I mean, everybody's not used to just coming into a website and typing their question in a question form. Everybody's conditioned for keyword searches. And so we've worked with Parth on really one of the big things on our side is understanding what questions are being asked, or what's being put in and what the logging looks like, and are we returning results. And we noticed a much heavier shift on just people putting in words and not really asking questions, just kind of throwing in keywords, even though it was a enhanced search. And now we're definitely seeing more of the, hey, I'm going to ask a question. Where can I rent paddle boats? I mean, they know what they're wanting. They just don't go type paddle boats now. And you can find it. I mean, you could go to keyword search and you could find it. You're going to get a few other things first, but if you just type it, then you get the results back. And that kind of ties into what, in talking with Parth, would be like, hey, what's multimodal look like on this? What if you were on your phone and you just wanted to hit the record button because you've got the natural language processing to be able to do the transcription on the fly. And so that's where he's kind of taken it, a step up with his team and said, hey, let's start looking at this. Let's ask the question, return the results back, over a phone. And we've started looking at that. But really, we're trying to get our answers right and understand what we're being asked. We're definitely seeing a lot of it. It truly drives people keeping their sites up to date. If you have any bad information and it's getting indexed, that's going to become part of your results. So it's really kind of pushed us across all departments to make sure. But it's really good eye opener too, because if this is what the citizens are wanting and coming to the site to ask, if we go back and say, hey, well, they were just doing keyword searches, they may have found it, they may have not, then they called. But if you're coming in and saying, where can I rent paddle boats? And if you do that on our site, it'll say Dan Nicholas Park. That's what it'll return, every single time. And that's important because if we offered it somewhere else, we would want to make sure that's updated. So kind of being able to provide that information back to the departments that, hey, if you keep your sites up to date, you're going to kind of shield yourself, and folks can self-serve on this, again, to the after hours point. If they're looking for something on a weekend or something after hours, they'll be able to kind of have that information. But it's definitely driven us to be a lot more cautious in what we're putting on the site and what's being indexed.
And
Yeah, you
Mike,
make a great. Go ahead. Go ahead,
something
Judge.
to that. One of the things that I really like is that the information we control and it is accurate. Because when people do legal searches, Google searches, especially on a legal issue, it can run the gamut, even things that do not apply in the state of New Jersey. And having them search, and the fact that it is a controlled data and that interaction has made our lives easier.
That's a great point too, and especially for cities that might be near other state lines or other county lines and things like that too. You really want to make sure that the information they're getting is specific to your county, right? You don't necessarily want, if you're in Rowan County, you don't want people to get information from your sister county or other places. You want it specific to you. So I'm going to put the three of you on the spot here and ask, can you show us some of this stuff? Can you show us what this looks like in the real world? Is there a screen share you can show us? Just kind of go, and for those of us who might be more visual learners or things like that, to show us, okay, what does this look like? You talk about this thing that I can go on the website and ask questions on the website. What does that actually look like, and how does that feel to use it for the user? I'll pitch it over to Parth here first. If you want to delegate to any of the two distinguished guests here as well too, feel free to do that.
Sounds good. Well, yeah, Randy, if you want to show yours, I have
Yep.
Circuit Casanova's up as well, so I can show hers after.
Yep. And I'm going to share just my Rowan County. Let me make sure I'm getting the right one. Yeah, and if we do something and we don't quite get it right, actually, let me stop sharing on that guy and actually just get my one window if you don't mind. Go to my screen. Let me search for Chrome. Really? No, I think that was a good one. Yeah. So I'll just clear this results out. But so what we're doing is when we're kicking over to the site, and just make sure everybody can see that. Share. So we're starting off, we've kind of moved to the scrolling page. And so we have the enhanced search, then we have keyword search, and we allow you to go back and forth. So if you click in here, kind of first thing, front and center, Honorable Gasnova's point, it's Rowan County information, so it's not a Google search. So Parth, anybody throw out a question that you want to ask about Rowan County and see if we do it. So we'll do it on the fly. We might as well see what we get. I've got folks in the room here with me. So April, if you think of anything, tell me. Well, what's a good question? Okay. About an animal. So basically from here, what we have is two things. We have the answer to adopt an animal. It all kind of shows in this fill out adoption waiting form, final adoption process, tells you you have 18 years old and legal ID and payment options. And then what's really also here is not just providing an answer, but looking to, where are we pulling this source from? How do we get it? What are we going to go to? And where are we going to click to get that? And then also have some other information about rephrasing your question if need be, if you didn't quite get what you want, or if you still prefer the keyword search. And I've already asked Parth, I'm gonna put him on the spot because that way he'll have to develop it. I've already said, hey, if we've got one box here, if I type in animal adoption, I don't know what I'm going to get, but it should say that that's a keyword search and kick over a keyword. So we'll see. It might even tell you how to adopt animal because, it will get the answer. It's enough information in that. Visit the animal shelter, fill out the adoption waiting form, payments can be made. So not a great example, but really to understand that, I'd love to have one bar, not to have people think back and forth between both and be able to either ask a question or just put in a couple keywords. But that's our real use of the external, and then again, I can go to keyword search and I can do animal adoption. And we've got adopt a pet policies, adoption program, and this can go across the gamut. And then you're scrolling through multiple pages as opposed to getting a concise answer. So ultimately, the question you're asking, you're getting an answer to versus having to go visit all these pages. You can if you want. You can go reference all of it. But if you just have a simple question, you're just asking that. So
that's incredible. That's awesome. That's really cool. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, and Randy, I appreciate you putting us on the spot here. This is actually a pretty good introduction for where we're taking this to the next level, which is we're working with Randy and the team on this soon. But one of the interesting things with the AI search and the answer is it's really built around taking insight from the question and then matching it with sources and then giving you an answer. But as Randy pointed out, when they started, it was a lot of keyword-based questions still, right? So now it's like probably leans more questions, and we have a full log where you can see that, but it's maybe like 60-40. But I think the idea there is what we kind of call, and the industry calls hybrid search, which is where you can get the best of both worlds, where if it's just keywords, it's going to try to find the keyword matches in the pages. But then if it's a question, it's actually going to generate an answer on that. And so that's the one search bar goal we're working towards. And so hopefully we'll have some exciting stuff to announce there soon. And I can show Surrogate Casanovas as well. Because I think there's a few interesting pieces here. So one of the neat things, if we ask around fees and questions, and sorry, feel free to ask any other ones, but you can see how it pulls from those sources, lays out these answers. But what's really neat is behind the scenes, we have a few special sources like that bench book and others. And so those are not going to show up as ones that folks can click through because that's kind of an internal one, but it can use that in its knowledge base. And so that's really useful for certain things. Sometimes there's PDFs, documents that you want to keep as your internal information. Maybe use it for providing answers, but you don't want folks clicking through to them and seeing what's in that document or things like that. So that's one of the things that happens behind the scenes here. Sorry, I don't know if you had any other specific questions or things you wanted to highlight here.
Since we were talking about the one word search, if you type animal on the chat and hit return, it will actually give you, it should give you, oh, it used to give us at one point information and refer you to the county on what to look at. And mention that an animal can be considered an estate asset. But I found that when we were in the playing stage and in the beta stage, we would ask it things about a dog or random one word, because people will just ask all kinds of things. If you look at all results, my staff has utilized that to find the statute and the section of the law. That's where it has become an internal source and reference to my staff, because they see it in the all results, that section of the law, and they just have to go, and it just saves them a lot of time because our rule book is massive. And so it saves the staff so much time. And I love the fact that people can actually, please show, my favorite feature is that they can answer in their native tongue the question and read it accordingly. So if you after the question mark, you say answer in Arabic or Bengali, which is two very large groups in Passaic County, and it will normally answer.
That's incredible.
That's
incredible.
Right. And I do not have the resources to hire people that speak 72 languages, but AI and Polymorphic has given me that ability to, again, reach those groups, have them understand. And when they call, we get a printed transcript of what the communication, and that has also helped us in figuring out what the frequently asked questions will be and tweak that. So that way, if you don't want to avail yourself of the communication back and forth, you can at least go to the frequently asked questions and it's there. And we're seeing what people are asking beyond the basic that we assumed might be of interest or what the common search will be.
I also want to go back and highlight something too, Part, that I think maybe we overlook in terms of understanding how large language models work and how these things happen. Even the response before on just the word animal, where it said I can't find anything in there on animal. The ability for the model to not just hallucinate and give a response, but actually understand that. I know we didn't necessarily get the response from the other county solutions, whatever, but I think it speaks to how good of a platform this is, that it's not going to hallucinate. It's not going to give you some kind of answer about, hey, animal, and going to make something up and then give you a bad link and a bad response, which is just going to cause probably more work and more stress on Judge Casanova and her staff there, right? By having to undo and educate all the things that go with that. So that actually, to me, is a cool example, and it shows just how sophisticated this system is, that it's able to understand that and able to get beyond and not just give a response like we see with other chatbot models, right? I think this is the difference too, to highlight the difference between if the question is, okay, well, I can just use ChatGPT to do this, or I can use other AI tools. And there are, trust me, I'm the biggest fan of those kind of platforms. I use them all the time. But there's something to be said. Those systems are designed to give you a response, and it's going to give you a response right or wrong, or somewhere in between, and somewhere on the spectrum in between. But it's important in local government, especially if we deal with efficiency, we still have to be very accurate in what we're doing too. And so I just want to highlight that as an example of why these things are important. It's not just a matter of giving a response. It's about giving the right response the first time as much as possible. So I
And
want to,
I'm sorry, Mike, I want to add to that. Even in the voice, the phone response, it does also will let the caller know. I suggest that you call during the day and get more information. So it does even correct itself on the voice interaction. And that is an amazingly great feature because you're 100% correct. It's not just giving you a random answer.
And Mike, if I can add too, because that was one of the
please.
things I'd worked with Parth on is as we were going through and finding some of this and we started just brainstorming, hey, let's just ask questions and see what we get. We had recognized that again, going back to having information up to date or maybe having two different types of information and not having one, specific enough that we're getting the right answer. That was one of the findings that we needed to have as well as some way to be able to go and either re-index, re-embed so that when we do run that query again and ask that question, we're getting a change in response. And that's using the common tools, like if we were saying, okay, a chat GPT or a Claude or something like that, we have no idea what the indexing rates are and when we're ever going to see that again. So kind of having something on our own that's taking advantage of the AI toolkits, but at the same time using the most relevant and up-to-date information, being in control of, hey, when we're authoritative for the source of the information, we want to push that update out there, make sure it's getting re-indexed, and then we're actually able to answer the question based off that new info. Was extremely important to know that we could update our info, not just on the website, but in response as well.
Yeah, excellent points, and thank you both for jumping in and sharing those insights. Really appreciate that. I want to shift now, and as we close things out, again, we began with a conversation about why efficiency is a desired end state, why AI is important to help us get there. Talk through some practical examples of what that looks like. So now let's I get a lot of views on these videos on YouTube and things like that. So if someone's watching this video and saying, "Okay, this is awesome," I'm gonna start with you, Sorga Casanova. What are maybe 3 to 5 things that they should, like, if a magistrate judge is looking at this, another surrogate judge is looking at this, what are some of the things that they need to do to prepare themselves and the conversations they need to have internally to figure out, okay, how do I approach this? What are some of the things in place that they need to think through as they look to gain efficiency and look to improve their processes using AI? What are some of the conversations they need to have behind the scenes?
You need to start by identifying the level of law or information that you're going to be sharing. And to consider, you want to provide enough information to empower your user, but not so much information that you confuse your user. So that was one of the first things we did. Even though the actual statute is there, it's being answered in a very generic, and not generic, but clean and easy to follow interface. Because and then after you've identified the information that you want to share that will not confuse the user, what do you want them to do next? So we are working, I'm gonna also put Parth on this on the spot to take it to the next level, which is then entering that information so that then it can be utilized by our team and our staff. So it's not really 3, it's really 2, because in the courts, there's always going to be a human element. But for me, I wanted to make it easier. And that's one thing AI has been able, I can go exactly where the person is. And with finite information, secure information that I know is accurate, and then that interface coming back to me.
Excellent points there. And I think that applies not just to, the judicial system, the local government judicial system, but to any city, any county should be having those exact same conversations too. Parth, I'm gonna kick it over to you now. So you see things from a global perspective, having to work with lots of different cities, lots of counties, different perspectives. What are some of the conversations that would be helpful? Like how should if I'm a city manager and I'm looking at this, I'm a county manager and I'm looking at this, what are the conversations that need to take place? What should I look at in order to be able to bring this into house and be able to achieve what we're seeing here on these to be able to get the same results we're seeing here as examples from Surrogate Casanova's county as well as Randy's as well.
Yeah, so I think that's a good question. I think there's kind of two parts I see. The first is more like an organizational thing, right? Which is, I think something we talk a lot about is we want to provide great customer service to residents and business. I think that's important to like remember that's really kind of our mandate in government, right? We get so focused on, hey, we got to build a budget for the next year, and every year you're doing that. But like the whole reason you have a budget is to provide these services to your residents and businesses, right? Like that's the whole point. And I think oftentimes the first conversation I would have, like the first bullet point there would be just with staff, especially like loop in departments, loop in staff, and try to kind of understand where time is being spent, where folks are maybe want to get creative with where they could use AI. And there's a good way to approach that. I think Randy will talk definitely about this from the IT hat, which is, you don't want them putting just data willy-nilly into ChatGPT that's like personally identifying information, stuff like that. But I do think there's this idea where a lot of people have this knee-jerk reaction to AI, which is it's like AI and then human touch are two opposite sides of the spectrum. And I think Sergey Casanova and Randy both have great examples where like fundamentally they're additive, right? The fact that like Sergey Casanova has a after hours line means staff has more time during the day to spend with the folks who are coming in person. So are you saying that they've gotten rid of the personal touch with AI? In fact, they've added more, right? So I think that's like a interesting example of like they're never going to leave someone on hold, right? And I know Randy's talking about with the website, providing natural answers, right? Search is not like it's a bunch of links, right? This is finally a way that humans talk and interact. That is what you see on the site. So I think that's really the big thing I would say is like content is really important. Get that organized. Think about like initiatives, be open to them. And remember, at the end of the day, like our main mandate is customer service, right? And it's so easy to get caught in like the daily crisis or the weekly crisis. But if you can't handle that 80% operational work that is maybe can be eased by AI, those crises will also start to feel less like that because you have more time, you have more capacity. So I think it's just priorities. Like it's the deeper reasons sometimes are the ones you want to, those deeper issues and efficiencies are what you want to go for first because it will open up more opportunity than you realize.
Yeah, and I love the point you make about that AI is not taking away the human element of things and the human interaction, which is extremely important for local governments and governments of all, state, local, federal. That human touch, I think, is very important. But you make a great point about why it's not a matter of AI is replacing humans. It's actually providing more opportunities for humans to be able to interact with each other and provide that sense of community and provide that touch point with other human beings and provide that service to them. It's an excellent point.
Right. If you do not do work, you spend more time with people, right? Like that's the
exactly. Like there's a reason why we're in the local government business. This is a business of people, and that's what we do. We deal with people in a good way, not deal with it as in terms of negatively, but we get to interact with people, get to interact with some really fine citizens across our country, which is a really exciting thing. That's why we're in the work that we do. Randy, from your perspective as a CIO, what are some of the things that counties and cities need to look at when we're approaching this? What are some of the things that we need to think through before we just dive in with both feet and then realize that we're probably too much in the deep end and we're calling you and saying, "Hey, IT folks, bail us out here," right? What are some things we need to think through?
And I'll turn back to you and say, hey, here's what I'll go with is, do you have the information available, and is it in a form that can be on a website? And it can be very complex, but it needs to have the answers to what people are looking for. If you don't have the information there, it's not available in some way, shape, or form, whether it's internal documentation or publicly accessible. you're going to have problems implementing, an AI assisted response to something, because you're not going to have, you're going to be going off of general knowledge, versus things that are tailored to, your organization and how you do things and what your ordinances, or what your special departments may have. Uh, and one thing, and I've talked with Parth about this, and it's been a interesting story. We've had, a few different events that we have every year, and found that doing AI searches on that was returning little to no results, and ultimately found that the staff in the departments were using images to generate, all of it. I mean, it's, if you're having an annual event, it's pretty common just to create a flyer or a brochure and not really have the information in any, readable form. It's just, hey, I'm going to post this up here. I'm going to turn all the letters sideways. And, that's just not the greatest thing. So getting your data and information ready from an AI perspective, is big. And then as you're going through, definitely have an open mindset. If you're seeing that you're answering a battery of questions and you're not getting the answers you want, from an IT perspective, from working with, a business partner on this, is you've got to be able to look under the hood and see what data is there, what's being used, to help answer the questions, and exactly why that's breaking down. The models, now are to the point where if you have the right information to work with, you're going to be able to get those responses back, whether it's in your native language or 127 other languages. That's kind of been there. We're past that point. Just like, I mean, I go back to the whole, hey, could we do transcription of a call, 20 years ago? And I was like, you could, but you're going to retype, 50% of it. Now you get a transcription and you ask questions to summarize, and you're going to get what you need, unless somebody coughed while you were saying that one number, that you're trying to ask for. So I think it's really exciting from that perspective. But like I said, understand what's being there. If you do have answer or questions that you're asking and you're not getting the right answers, understand what your data is, understand who's providing it, how up to date it is, and is it in a format that's, even usable. And I'd say the timing is, at least from a local government, state government perspective, is awesome, because we have the mandate for ADA compliance in 2 years too. So marry the projects together. Get your ADA compliance and get your data prep. So.
Yep, great points. And thank you to all three of you for spending time and talking here. We probably could have went hours on each individual thing we talk about, right? So I want to just, please, if you're watching this and you have questions, feel free to reach out to any of the four of us, ask questions, and we're more than happy to help out. And it's hard to take all the insight and experience that the three of you bring to this conversation and condense it into a 50-minute webinar. That's really, really hard to do. So please, reach out to Randy, reach out to Surrogate Casanova, reach out to Parth, myself, if I can be any help, and let's continue the conversation. So thank you so much for spending the time with us today. Thank you to all those who are watching this on YouTube as well too. Thank you for taking time out of your day to watch this. And again, let's continue to have this conversation. Let's continue to show what we're doing and how we're using AI in ways that to the point you made today, right? This is all about customer service. So that's the end goal. We want to do what's right and what's best for our residents and help them feel valued, regardless of what language they speak, regardless of how they're searching for information, regardless of what mode they're searching for information in. And tools like Polymorphic give us the opportunity to do that. So any questions on Polymorphic, Parth is your guy, brilliant guy. So reach out to him and start the conversation there. Parth, thank you so much for your sponsorship of this AI and local government network today as well too, for helping put this whole thing together. Really appreciate that. Please go check out polymorphic.com. And again, special shout out again to our bronze sponsors as well, like Clerk Minutes. Thank you for their support of local government and AI and local government. Until next time, I'll see you again on the first Monday in August. I believe that'd be August 5th. Double check here my calendar. And yes, August 5th, same time, same channel. Would love to have you join again, and we have another conversation about how to use and how local governments are leveraging AI to achieve real results. So until next time, be well, and thank you all.
Thank you, Michael.